Welcome back to another project. In this project, we are going to create a feedback UI. As you can see from the final version of the project, we have 3 ratings here: unhappy, neutral, and satisfied. We have a hovering effect for each of them, and if we click on one of them, for example, the unhappy, we're going to add an active this rating, which is going to change the background color of this rating. And then when we click on this button, send review, this is going to show us thank you and show the name of the feedback that we have selected. For example, here the feedback is unhappy. If we refresh the page, we can choose another feedback. For example, I choose satisfied. If I click on send review, I see the feedback is changed to satisfied. In this project, we're going to learn firstly how to style the project with this design, how to add the background color, how to create a container with box shadow. And then we're going to learn how to use JavaScript to add and remove a class to activate a rating. And also we're going to learn how to add an event listener to this button, which is going to trigger a function. And this is going to get the inner text of each rating and show it inside the other text, which is going to show the feedback. In the next section, we're going to start with the HTML part of the project. So see you in the next section. All right, welcome back. In this section, we're going to start working on the HTML file of the project. I put the final version here for our comparison, and we see what we're going to build in this section. So let me just show you. So now, as you can see, we just have a div here with a class of container, which is covering everything. This is the container we have. Then we have a title. After that, we have another div that is covering all these emojis and ratings. And each of them, it has its own div. This is a div, this is a div, and this is a div. And inside the div, we have an image and some label. And finally, we have the button at the here. So let's first create the HTML file of the project. So I'm going to create the project inside Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to use Visual Studio Code for my text editor. After opening the Visual Studio Code, we can close the Get Started tab by clicking on here. And here inside the file menu, we can click on the Open folder to create a new folder for the project. I want to create the project inside my desktop. So I click on desktop and I create a new folder and I call it the name of the project, which is feedback UI. So we press enter to create the folder, and now we can click here on the select folder to select the folder. Now we close the Get Started tab again, and inside the Explorer section, which is now on the folder that we have created, feedback UI, we click on this icon to create a new file, and we call it index.html, and we press enter. Now we have the file on the right side. We can close the Explorer section to have more space. The file is completely empty, but we can have simply a HTML boilerplate using an exclamation mark. So we can just write an exclamation mark, and we click on the first auto suggestion, the one that is suggested by Emmet abbreviation. So this is going to create an HTML boilerplate. So let me explain this real quick if this is your first project. So the doc type here sets and tells the browser which version of HTML we are writing the code. And as we are using HTML5, we have to add HTML as an attribute inside this doc type. After that, we have the HTML tag, which is covering both of the head tag and the body section. The lang attribute here inside the opening HTML tag sets the language of the page. And by default, with the boilerplate, we have the English for the language inside the browser. Then we have the head tag, which has 3 metadata tags and also a title tag. The first metadata tag sets the charset attribute, and we choose UTF-8, which is recommended by HTML5. because it nearly contains all the characters and symbols, and the users inside the browser won't have any problem using our website. Then we have the compatibility metadata tag, which tells the Internet Explorer browser to use the most recent rendering engine, which is Edge. So the users who are using still Internet Explorer won't have any problem. After that, we have the viewport metadata tag, which sets the width of the screen, width of the browser to the device's width. So this is going to adjust the width of the browser to your device that you're using the browser. For example, you're watching the website inside your phone or tablet or desktop. The browser is going to set the width based on that device size. And finally, we have the initial scale, which is the initial zoom level of the browser, and we set it to be 100% by just choosing 1 here. Then we have the title tag, which sets the title of the page. So let me show you this HTML file inside the browser. If you have the extension which is called Live Server, if you click on Go Live at the bottom of your Visual Studio Code, you're going to open this HTML file inside a server that is created by that extension on port 5500. And the title is Document. Let's bring the website on the right side so we can have a real-time change inside the browser and see it. So let's change the title first to the name of our project, which is Feedback UI. So you can see that the website is changed to Feedback UI. Now it's time to work on the body section and create our website similar to the one in the final version. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we want to create a container here, an empty container, and put everything inside it. So we're going to add a div inside the body section by just adding dot, and we just add a class to it. We call it container, and also we want to add an ID of container because we're going to style this using CSS later. We can use this class to target that inside the CSS, and we can target this div using this ID because we want to change inside this. For example, if I choose the first one and click send review, you see that entire container's content is changed. So we want to target that container and change its HTML like this using JavaScript. So later we're going to use this ID. Inside this div with the class of container, we're going to add the heading first. So we add a h1 tag. We add a h1 tag with a class of heading because we want to style it later using CSS, using this class. So we just write h1.heading. After pressing the enter, we get this h1 tag with the class of heading. Then we just write down inside this heading tag the name of the project, which is Feedback UI. So you can see it here inside the browser. After the h1 tag, we're going to, as I mentioned before, we're going to have a div here. And inside the div, we're going to have 3 divs. So I'm going to add one div, and I call this div, I'm going to add a class of the ratings dash container. And also we can add an ID of rating container in order to use it later using JavaScript. So rating dash container for the ID as well. So inside this div, let me save this one too. So now we have this div. Inside the div, we're going to have we're going to have 3 divs. So the first div is going to be with the class of rating. Then inside this div, we're going to have an image, img tag. So for the src, we're going to have that emoji, this emoji here. I got these emojis from a website called Flat Icon. So if you go to Google and we search for flat icons or flat icon, as you can see in the search result, we are going to use a website called flaticon.com. Let's go to this website, and here I'm going to search for a icon with the name of I just search for emoji first, see what sort of emojis they have. So we see there are many emojis with different things. So emoji, for example, the first one, this one is unhappy. So I just search for unhappy one. It can be this one or this one with the line. You can click on it, and here you can get the link of this. So let me show you how to do it. So you just need to right click and click on the copy image address, and you go back here and you paste it here. Now if you look at our website, we see the emoji here. So after the image, we don't need an alternative for this one. After the image, we're going to have a small tag, and we just say unhappy. So we can see it here. So this is kind of huge, but we're going to use CSS later to style this. So for now, we're going to let's just finish these three containers. So I'm going to copy this one two more times using Alt Shift arrow down, and I just changed this one to neutral. The last one I changed it to satisfied, and let's change them as well. So we search for another emoji. We call it neutral. Yeah, neutral. We search, we see we can find something neutral like this one. So we can copy this one using right click and click on copy image address, and I change the second one src to that one. And let's search for the happy one or satisfied. So I search for happy. I feel this is okay, and we just right click and click on copy image address, and we put it inside the last one here. So let's check that we have all of them. Okay, so we have all of them here. So let's close the flat icons website. So we just need to search flat icon, and this is completely free, and you can use it as much as you want for the image emojis here. So let's continue and create this button. So the button is outside the ratings container. So this is the rating container. Outside that, we're going to create a button with a class of btn and also with the ID of btn. As I mentioned before, the class is for the styling and ID is for targeting it using JavaScript. The ID is unique. You cannot use this btn anywhere else inside the HTML file, but class can be used in different places. So usually people use class for the styling and they use ID for the JavaScript. So inside the button, we're going to say send review. Okay, you can see the button here at the bottom. All right, so that was it for the HTML part of the project. In the next section, we're going to install this project using CSS, and we're going to make it like this final version. We're going to add a background color, and also we're going to design this container using box shadow, and also we want to add some shadow effect to the button and this hovering effect for the emoji and the rating sections. So see you in the next section for the CSS part of the project. Welcome back. In this section, we're going to start styling the project using CSS. If you look at the final version, we see that we have a background color, a light blue color, and then the container here is just a box shadow. It has a shadow effect, and we have here a hovering effect with transition, and finally we have another hovering effect for the button. And also when we click on the button, we see the animation inside the button as well. So we're going to create these animations and effects using CSS. The first thing we need to do is to create a CSS file. So inside the Visual Studio Code, we open the Explorer section using Ctrl-Shift-E. And here inside the Explorer section, we create a new file by clicking on this icon, and we call the file style.css. Before using the CSS file, we need to add a link to the CSS file within the HTML file. So we go back to index.html. Just after the title tag, we create a link tag. We just write down link, and we get the auto suggestion link with the CSS. And this is going to create a link tag for us with the relationship between the HTML file and the style.css. And with the destination of the file, the href attribute is just style.css, because both files are located at the same directory. Let's close the Explorer section to have more space here. And we go to Solid CSS to start installing our project. As you can see, the emojis are huge now. They are so big and we cannot see the other styling before install this emoji. I want to just target firstly the emojis, make them smaller, and then we can continue install the other sections. Inside the index.html, the emojis are inside a div with a class of rating. And so we need to target that class and also the image inside this rating. So we can do that by just saying dot rating to target the rating class. And then we add a space and we just say img. We target that tag. So now we can install all the images. We just set the width of them to be 40 pixels. Let's refresh this page and we see the changes. So now they're the same size of the final version. Now we can style other parts and see the changes here. So I usually start from the body section, and I recommend that you do it the same way. So we target the body section by just saying body and adding a set of curly braces. First, I want to remove the margin, the default margin. I set it to be 0. So we remove the space between the emojis or anything else and with the wall of the browser. After that, I want to change the background color to be light cyan. That's that one. This is kind of bluish color, light blue color. And let's change the color of the texts to be dark green. So this is going to change the text like Fit UI and other things. So for bringing everything to the center, we need to do two things. First, we need to change the display to flex to be able to change the position of the elements. Then we need to set the height of the screen as well. So first thing first, I change the display to flex. And then we set the mean height of the screen to be 100% of the viewport height. So this is the way that we have always the size of the browser at least 100%. In this way, we can bring the elements to the center vertically. So we can now just use the justify content center to bring everything to the center horizontally, and then align item center to bring everything to the center vertically. But without this mean height, we couldn't use align items. All right, so the other things I want to do here inside the body section, I want to change the font family of the all texts to be monospace. All right, so that's a nice font. Let me zoom this a little bit so you can see it better. The next things I want to style is this container here. If you look at the final version, you see we have a container that has everything inside it, and it has some box shadow and etc. So we can target that one by just targeting this container, this div at the top with the class of container. So, but because it is a class, we need to add a dot here, and after that we're gonna add the container. Okay, container this way. Let's change the background color because I wanted to keep the background color and make it kind of glassy design. This one should be black background because I want to add an RGBA color. RGBA color actually stands for red, green, blue, and alpha. For red, green, and blue, I set 255, which gives us a white color. Then I want this white color to be 30% transparent by changing the alpha value of the RGBA. So now we see it like this. It's not completely visible, but we can add a box shadow to make it more visible. So I just changed the box shadow. The box shadow gets a few parameters. The first one is the shadow in the x-axis. The second one is the shadow inside the y-axis. You can see it here. The third one is the blurriness is 10 pixels. You can see the color of the shadow is green as well. So we can change this one by using another RGBA. For red, green, and blue, I use 0, 0, and 0, which gives us the black color. Then we use 0.3 for 30% transparency. So it should be like that. And we set the border radius. I wanted to make the corners to be rounded. So I changed the border radius to be 10 pixels. The other things I want to do is add some space around the elements inside this container by just adding padding 20 pixels. I want to set the width of this container to be 85%. So if you remove the zoom level, you see that this is 85%. So we have some space this way and the other way. And when we have a bigger screen, still we have some space, but bigger space because it's a percentage. So if we want to limit the max width, so I just set the max width to be 400 pixels. So it's not going to be more than this size. So let's bring it to the right side again. And let's bring everything to the center using text align center like this. And finally, I want to increase the size of the text by using font size to be 20 pixels. All right. So that was it for the container section. I think we have done all the parts here. The next things I want to install is this heading. So the h1 tag here has the class of heading. So we can target that one here by just saying dot heading. And inside the dot heading, we're going to add some CSS syntaxes like I want to add a margin for it, a space around it. So I want to add a space around 5 pixels. And also I want the font size to be 30 pixels. So make it a little bit smaller. So after the heading, let's style this div that is covering all of them. So we have another div called ratings container, which is covering all the ratings, all of them from here to here. All right, so we're going to target this one. So we just say dot ratings dash container. So we're going to target all of them. The first things I want to do, I want to change the display to flex, which is going to bring them next to each other like this. And I want to add some padding for the top and bottom 20 pixels. And for the left and right, 0 pixels. So as you can see, they are not aligned. So we're going to, next things I want to do is to install the rating, which is covering the image and the small tag. So this rating that is covering image and the small tag in 3. So we have 3 places to target by targeting that dot rating. So we just say dot rating, and this is going to be first thing first. I want to change the cursor to be pointer. So when we hover over them, we see a pointing hand. Let's add some padding of 10 pixels. So add some space around them, which make them actually centralize better. And we add some margin. Margin, we want to add 10 pixels for top and bottom and 5 pixels for left and right. As you can see from the final version, when we hover over these elements, we see that the background color is changed to green and the color of the text is changed to white. So we want to achieve this one by targeting the rating hover effect. So we just say dot rating, but we want to target the hover. So when we hover over it, or when we bring the mouse over these elements here, we want to see some changes. First thing first, I want to change the background color to be dark. It's a dark sea green. So you can see like that. And also I want to add a border radius. So we make the border rounded by 10 pixels like this. And finally, we want to add some box shadow, 0 for X and Y axis, 10 pixels for blurriness, and we just use RGBA 000 for black color and 30% transparency. You see the shadow effect. And also I want to change the color of the text to be a different color. Let me see that we can add it here, or we can apply somewhere else. I think that's the place we can do. So we just change the color to be Alice blue like this. But this is a very fast changing. I want to add some transition. So I want to add some transition to make it more smooth with animation. So we just say add the transition to everything that is changing 30 to 300 millisecond and with the ease effect. So we see that the changes is slower. I think that is enough for this section. The next things we want to style is the this button. So the button has the class of btn, as you can see from the HTML file. So we can target that one by using .btn. The first things I want to do is change the background color to be dark cyan. The color of the text, I want it to be Alice blue, which is kind of white, but a little bit darker. Let's remove the border. I don't want any border for that. So we set the border to be 0, or we can set it to be none. Then we can add some margin, a space around it, 10 pixels. And also let's make the border to be radius and has some rounded corner by setting it to be 4 pixels. Now we can add some padding to make it bigger and add a space around the text, 12 pixels for top and bottom and 30 pixels for left and right. And also cursor to be pointer for the effect. When we hover over the button, we want to see a pointing hand. All right. So another things I want to do when we hover over the button, I want to see a box shadow. So we target the button, its hover effect. And when we hover over it, I want to have a box shadow with 0 for the x-axis, 5 pixels for the y-axis, 10 pixel blurriness, and RGBA 000 for black and 30% transparency, as you can see here. Now this is not smooth. We can add a transition here as well. We just say transition, apply for everything, and 300 milliseconds with ease effect. We see like that. This is similar transition we have added here. Okay. And also when I click on the button, I want the size of the button to be different. We can do that one by just targeting the button, and we just set it, we target its active pseudo class. Active means when we click on it. So we change the transform and change the scale of the button from 100% to 96%, like this. So when we click on it, we see this change. So that's it for the styling of the project. In the final version, when we click on a rating, this is going to stay. As you can see, the background stays like active, and if you do the other one, we get the same way. This is a technique in JavaScript. We add and remove some classes to an element to, for example, change the background color or doing something like that. So for example, here inside the index.html, if I add another class called active here, and we want to target this active inside the style.css. If you remember, for the hover effect, we have added a dark sea green color and some things like that. But also we can say if we have another class, let me show you here. If we have a class called active, also we want to have a background. So as you can see, the first one in HTML has the class of active, so we see the background color is green. If we add this active to the second one, we see the second one has the background color. So later in the next section, we use JavaScript to remove and add this active class to keep this one like the final version active. All right. So this is the technique usually in JavaScript they use to change or toggle between some classes inside the HTML. So now just manually we have added the active class, but in the next section we're going to do it using JavaScript. So for now I just remove the active classes. So in the next section we're going to use JavaScript to first thing first add an event listener to this button. When we click on the button, we see which one is active, and then we're going to send the feedback like this and show it to the person, and first thank the user and said the feedback is, for example, unhappy. So if we choose, for example, satisfied and click on send review, we see the feedback is satisfied. So we're going to use a few things like add event listener. We want to add and remove the classes here. So we're going to learn many things later using JavaScript to do and add these functionalities. So see you in the next section for the JavaScript part of the project. All right, in the last section, we have completed the CSS part of the project. In this section, we're going to add more functionality to the project using JavaScript. If you look at the final version here, when we click on any rating like unhappy, neutral, or satisfied, this is going to activate a class and add the class to this particular div, which is going to keep the background color of this rating green. And when we click on the button, we're going to see the same rating. For example, here is satisfied. And so we can get the information and completely change the container, this top container, ratings container. I think this container with these texts. So we're going to learn how to do it using JavaScript. So let's create a JavaScript file inside the Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to open the Explorer section using Ctrl-Shift-E. And here inside the Explorer, we need to click on this icon to create a new file. And we call the file index.js. And now let's bring this one to the end here. So we have the JavaScript file, but we need to add a link to the JavaScript file as well, like the one we did for the style.css. But the linking to the JavaScript file is a bit different. For the CSS, we have added the link tag after the title tag inside the head tag here. But for JavaScript, we need to add it at the end of the body tag. So in this way, all the elements would be loaded first inside the browser. Then JavaScript has access to the all elements, and then the JavaScript can add more functionality to these elements. So we need to add the script tag at the end of the body section. We just write down SC and we click on the second auto suggestion, the one with the src. src here is the source or the destination of the file, the JavaScript file. And as both files, I mean the index.html and index.js are located at the same directory, which is this folder feedback UI, we need to just add here the name of the file, which is index.js. Now we can use the JavaScript to add the elements and add some manipulation of these elements using the JavaScript file that we have created. The first things we need to do is to bring all the ratings inside the JavaScript. As you can see, we have 3 divs with the class of rating. So we can bring all these divs inside the JavaScript using a method called query selector all. So let's create a constant here and we call it rating elements with the S because it's more than one rating. It's 3 divs with the class of rating. So this is going to be equal to document because we want to target all the browser and document inside the browser. And then we just use the query selector all to target all the classes with the name of rating. And because it is there are classes, so we need to just add a dot like we do inside the CSS and write down the name of the class, which is rating. So we now have access to all the ratings divs here. So now we can add an event listener to each of them. So we need to have access to all of them using a method called for each. For each is going to loop through all these elements. So we need to write down the elements here, rating elements, and we're going to tap to the for each method, which is going to give us each element. So each element, and we call each element rating EL or rating element. It's singular because it's just getting the one. And now we can do some manipulation inside this function for that one. So we are getting each of them here. Now we add the add event listener to each of them. The event we want to add is click because we want to target when someone click on these elements, we want to call a function. So we create a function here. So let's save this. So we have created a function. This function is going to give us the things that we're going to click here. So let's go to our website. So this is going to give us the event here. Let's console log and see what events gives us. For example, I'm going to console log event.target.inner text. We want to see what's the text inside them. So let's see. So I'm going to open the console using F12. So now we are inside the console, inside the web developer tools in the Chrome. So make sure this is console. Then when we click on one of them, for example, we have to click on the div. So outside, not on the emoji. Here, so I'm not getting anything here. Okay, we got something. So when we click, we get the inner text, which is unhappy. Or if you click here, we get neutral. If we click on the emoji, we don't get anything because emoji doesn't have any text, but this one has a text too. So we can get the text inside it. So event.target.inner text gives us the text inside that div. But sometimes when we click on the emoji, we don't get any text. So this way we need to get the parents inner text. So this is the child, the emoji. The parents is the div that is around the emoji. So we can say if this is empty, we can just get, we can add an or here. If this is empty, just give us the event.target.parent node. So we need to add the parent node. Make sure you have a correct spelling. And then we add a dot inner text. So now if we even get to click on the emoji, we get the text inside the parent element. If we press outside, we get satisfied. We get, if we click on the text, we get satisfied as well. So here we get neutral, 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 unhappy, unhappy, and unhappy. So all of them is working. So now we need to add that class. If you remember, we have added a class inside the styled CSS. We said if there is a class called active, change the background color, change the border radius, box shadow, color, and transition. So it's similar to the hover effect. So hovering effect is actually activating them, but we want, when we click, we want to add that active class to the HTML file. So we can simply do that. Instead of console logging, we can just say event.target.classlist. The class list should be camel case, and this is going to, we're going to add, event.target.classlist.add, and we want to add the class name active. And also we want to add this one to the parents too. So as I mentioned before, when we click on the emoji, nothing happens. So we want to add, if there's someone click on the emoji, we want to add it to the parents. So here event.target.parent node.classlist.add. So now if we click, for example, on the emoji, we see that the background color stays green. So we have added the class of active. I can show you here inside the HTML as well. So when we, for example, if we open the container and then we go to inside the ratings container, we see that the div, the last div, which is this one, has the class of active. If I click now on the neutral, the active class is added to the second div. We can do it for this one as well. You can see. So by in this way, we can add the class active. But the things we want to do when we click on this icon, we want to remove the classes from the other ones, like the one in the final version. When we click on here, this is active. But when we click on the other one, this one is active, but this one is inactive. So we're going to remove this one. Okay. So we're going to create a function. We're going to create a function, and we call the function remove active. This is going to remove all the active classes from the elements. So we're going to firstly, we use for each for all these rating elements, which gives us each rating elements with the singular EL. So now we can use rating element dot class list. We want to remove a class. So we just say remove. Instead of add, we say remove, and the class we want to remove is active. So now we can call this function before adding it to that place. So let's remove this console log. We don't need it anymore. So I'm going to add this remove active. I'm going to call this function, which is going to remove all the active classes. And then we want to add the active classes to the one that is being clicked here. So now we click on happy. Let's see. Now the active class is added to the first div. If we click on the satisfied, which is the last one, this is going to remove all the active classes first from all the divs, and then it's going to add the active class to the last one. So this is the way it works. All right. So it's working. The first step is completed. Now we want to get this inner text. We want to get this inner text, and we want to send it, show it like the final version inside another text and show the feedback. All right. So we want to create a variable here at the top. We're going to create a variable and we call it selected rating. And for the initial value, we set the initial value to an empty string. And then when we click on here, we're going to change the selected rating to the e.target to the event.target.inner text. Or as I mentioned before, it can be the parent. So I'm going to copy this one, and then we just say event.target.parent node. Okay. So now we have the value of the neutral, happy, or satisfied, or these things inside the selected rating. Now we have the selected rating. After we click on the button, we want to show it in another place. So I'm going to bring the button. The button has an ID of btn. So we can bring it inside the JavaScript using a method called getElementById. So we create the btn element here, and this is going to be equal to document.getElementById, and the ID of the button is btn. We have access to the btn now. We can add the event listener to the btn. Let me add it just here after this. So the btn element, we're going to add an event listener, and the event we want to target is click. So when we click on the button, we want to trigger a function, and we bring the function here. And also, if there is nothing, for example, in the final version, if we didn't select anything, we cannot click on the button. The button doesn't trigger anything. So we can do that by just adding a condition. And if we say if the selected rating is not equal to empty string, we want to change the text inside. Otherwise, we don't want to do anything. All right. So now we want to bring this container. We want to bring this container and change everything inside the container with these text that we see here. All right. So we're going to bring the container first. So at the top, we're going to create another constant, and we call it container element. And this is going to be equal to document. We target all the document, and we use getElementById method, and we call the ID, which is container. Now we can simply go inside the function and inside this condition, and we just target the container element that we have got now. And then we want to change its inner HTML to this following. So we're going to, because this is dynamic and based on the selected rating, we need to add a backtick here. So we can have a dynamic inner HTML. This backtick is different from the quote. The backtick is located on the top of the tab. So inside the backtick, we can write down our HTML code. For example, I added a strong tag, which is going to make the text bold. I just write down thank you. And we're going to close the strong tag. Let's see. In the final version, if you select something and click, we see thank you. You see? But if you don't select anything, we cannot go to that place. If you select something, we see thank you. All right. So now, after the thank you, I'm going to add some lines. We can add a break. this is similar to an empty line. So I'm gonna add 2br tag, and then we're going to add another strong tag for the feedback. So I'm gonna copy this one, this strong tag, and instead of thank you, I'm gonna say feedback equal, and then this is the part that we have to write the dynamic things. So we're going to add a $sign and a set of curly braces to add a dynamic variable here. And we want to add this selected rating. So whatever selected rating is going to be equal to feedback. Let's test this one. So I'm going to choose, for example, satisfied, and I'm going to click on send review. This is going to show thank you, feedback, satisfied. Let's try with the other one, unhappy, thank you, feedback, unhappy. So this is the way you create a dynamic text. And finally, we're going to just have this, we'll use your feedback to improve our customer support. I'm going to copy this one. And inside this here, I'm going to add a paragraph, paste that text. I'm going to close the paragraph tag. So now, if we choose, for example, neutral, we see the thank you, feedback neutral. We'll use your feedback to improve our customer support. So this is the way you can add the HTML code inside your JavaScript. So you need to write down and tap to the inner HTML, and then you write down your HTML code. And also you can style them now as well in this CSS. You can add a class here, and then in the style, you can make this one bigger or smaller or whatever you want to do. So in this project, we have learned how to add and remove a class using class list and remove and the add here. And also we have learned how to use for each to get each element of, for example, we have added a query selector all. We got all the elements with the class of rating, and then we got each of these elements using for each, and we have added an event listener to each of them. The event we have added was click, and this is going to gives us the event, and we could get the inner text using event.target.innerText or event.target.parentNode.innerText. The other things we have learned is to create a variable and change it inside. We have changed it here. So we have got the event.target.innerText and put it inside this variable. And also we have removed the classes by creating a function. By using the for each method, we got each element and we have removed the classes first, and then we have added the class inside the this for each, which is going to only target the event.target, the one that it is clicked. All right. So that was it for the JavaScript part of the project. I hope you learned many things and enjoyed the course and the project. So see you in the next project.